Hello friends and welcome to Figure Study, where we're on take 3 of this video because of technical problems and also me just not setting things up properly. This has been fun. Also, we are about an hour away from dinner time, so I've got an extremely forcefully affectionate cat in my lap. Want to say hi, honey? Like I said. Are we talking about you now? No? Okay. Anyway, as annoying as it is, I really don't mind doing 3 takes on this video because this is a figure worth talking about because I really, really like this thing. This is yet another Hello Carbot. This time it is Hello Carbot Moban, or Moban, or Moban. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm just going to say Moban. This is a really, really fun toy, and I'm mad at myself for taking as long as I did to get my hands on this, because this came out a while ago, and I was like, nah, and then I saw videos on it, just like, I should have gotten that, and now I finally got it, and yeah, I'm just mad it took me so long, because this is so fun. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So to start, as you can see, Moban comes in 2 parts. You've got the large lump on wheels, and then something that's actually identifiable as a motor vehicle. That is a little sleek-looking, semi-futuristic car thing, which is a very simple deco, but it gets the job done. It's got minimal sculpt work. I mean, there is some nice detail in there, like the lines on the sides and the molding for the front section, and I also like the general shape of the car, how it kind of comes out along the ends and then comes back in before tapering to a point in the front. And you've got this neat little detail of the headlights kind of stretching back along the sides of the car. I don't know if this is just supposed to be like painted detail or actual headlights, but it still looks good. Also, the Hello Carbot logo, front and center on the grille, and painted pretty decently in silver. And just the windows painted in black, which, you know, take note, Hasbro. And the rest of it is just separated out plastic, like the black on the bottom here and the black detailless wheels. Well, not detailless, but unpainted wheels. And yeah, it's a very simple thing. It doesn't actually transform, it just rolls. But it rolls pretty well, despite the tiny wheels like that. That thing's got some pretty decent movement to it. And this is the first and both least and most important component for Moban. The second most important, and also most important, is this thing. And this thing sure is a thing. It's like a big armored van thing, I guess? I don't really know what this is supposed to be. Surprise, surprise, I don't watch the show, but this is kind of a mess. It's got some disparate colors here and there, but then you've got these giant chunks of non-color at the top where it's like just solid blue, solid blue. Well, it's more of like a dark gray, but still, there's like no painted detail on the top here, but then you've got this nice intricate painted detail along the sides and some nice tampographed detailing along the sides. You can see there's also some nice molded detailing all over this thing, including a little including a little Hello Carbot logo that appears in that spot on both sides. And yeah, it's fairly basic in terms of coloring, but it does have some nice molded details. It does have some nice paint. This is a really nice silver. There's these little headlight things, floodlights maybe at the front, but then the overall design of this vehicle is kind of, what am I looking at here? Like I said, it's sort of like an armored van, but I don't see anything that really qualifies as windows or viewing ports, which I guess you don't necessarily need if this is not actually a vehicle that people are driving. But hi, she's back on my lap again. Apparently I get to talk, hold the toy, and pet her with my face. For anyone who has cats, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's suitably futuristic and armored looking, but it's not particularly noteworthy. It's just kind of a lump with wheels and some nice colors and nice paint, but like, it's all just kind of a mess. Which, it's fine, but it's just not great. Which is fine. It doesn't really bother me at all. It's fun to transform, and that's kind of the main crux of it, really. I can deal with an alt mode that I'm not particularly thrilled about if it leads to a really fun robot mode. Case in point. Astrid, please stop jawing the camera. So that's kind of all I can really say about Moban's alt modes, because there's really nothing to either of them. They're basic vehicles, the colors are nice, but it's kind of basic. The detailing is there on the larger chunk, but that's about all it's got going for it. And yeah, but let's still talk about how these compare to other toys. So first off, here is everything with the standard deluxe squad, and I think it's pretty obvious to see that Moban's large chunk is roughly deluxe size. For something a little more in line with what we're looking at, here we've got Tobot, that being specifically Tobot v Wild Chief. Here is with a more classically sized Hello Carbot, that being Hello Carbot Ponymeister. And with a slightly more contemporary Hello Carbot, that being Dandy X from the Pentastorm X set. With the slightly more comparable in size, I'm going to move these a little bit closer here. With the slightly more comparable in size Leaf from the comparable Dire EX set. And speaking of, here is Moban with Dire from the Dire EX set. And here's Moban with the Duck Tank. Okay. I think that's a sufficient amount of size comparisons, and here comes the cat. I already compared you two, honey. But yes, that is how Moban, both of Moban's vehicles stack up in terms of size when compared to, I guess you could say, contemporaries. And now for the transformation. It's actually a two-part transformation with Moban, which is really fun. I actually really like the first part of the transformation, and that's because it's a magnetically locked spring-loaded affair. There is this gap right in the back of the main vehicle mode, and when you toss this in, there's a little magnet here that will stick in here and cause everything to activate. So, and now we have Moban in his robot mode, and this is a cute little robot mode. It's very simple and straightforward, but I actually really like that transformation. It's just a simple mechanism. Well, it's complex, but also like simple in function, where when this goes in here, it unlocks the locking mechanism, which causes this to flip around, and it unlocks from here. And basically just everything happens where this flips up and this flips back, and we're left with this cute little chubby robot. And here I think the kind of weird paint deco works a little bit better, because now you've got all this kind of silver up front here and much more yellow mixed in with the blue and some more silver and red here. It just makes more sense. It's not particularly functional. It can roll, and that's about it. But it is fun, and it's really fun too to just transform it back and then do this again. I do kind of understand the draw of these types of toys now that I have Moban in hand. Though I will say, not a fan of how he's just kind of a brick like this. He just rolls. It's fun to see everything pop up, but that's about all you got. There's not much else I can say about this currently, so instead, let's pull back, because we're going to have much larger stuff to talk about. But yeah, let's do some size comparisons real quick. And let me readjust again. So here we've got Moban after auto-transforming compared to the standard deluxe squad, and it's taller, but nothing much has really changed. It's just the back part of the main vehicle has flipped on top of the front part of the main vehicle. Alright. Never judged the size right with these things. So here is Moban with a more recent figure, that being Hello Carbot Wild Chief. And yeah, definitely a lot smaller than Wild Chief. Here he is with a more classic era Hello Carbot Ponymeister, and yeah, he's a lot smaller than a Hello Carbot. Here he is with Dandy X from the Pentastorm X set. Here he is with Leaf from the Dire EX set. Here, oh boy, still have to readjust a little bit. Here he is with Dire from the Dire EX set. And let me readjust again. And here he is with the Duck Tank. So yeah, Moban is fun to mess around with, and the deco definitely works a lot better once he's done his strange little auto transformation, but that is clearly not why I love this. Like, it's obvious that there's more to this than that, but I really like how they took the kind of auto transforming spring-loaded gimmick and enhanced it by giving him an actual proper transformation on top of that. So the way we start that off is to separate these bits from the side here, like that. And then these panels here, actually, they sit right behind this little blue tab there. So you bring those out, flip these around, and these will peg in here. Hi again. And straighten out the much larger and more proportional arm. And same deal here, flip down that, flip this out, and then this bit here can also flip around to extend a gun barrel. Next up is the legs. So you want to flip these down and then pull these down, and there are these little tabs on the thighs that will actually tab underneath this hip skirt here. So straighten those out, fold down some feet, split the legs, and now we're almost done, but what we do next is pretty cool. As you can see, this is kind of not ideal. Like, it's workable, but it's not ideal. So what you can do is there's actually this little piece, this little black piece inside the hip skirt section here, that when you fold all of this down, it folds up this little hook piece, and you can see there's this little hole right here in that torso piece. So when we have this down and we push this down in place, it locks the torso together, and that is super clever. And just like that, now we have Moban in his proper robot mode, I guess. And I love this. This is a really nifty little robot. And I like that they have this kind of fun kinetic transformation that's just fun to mess around with. It's a satisfying way that everything just kind of flips and folds over. But then you can transform it in addition to that, and you're left with a much more playable action figure. I said this during the first take of this video, but I really wish that they would revisit this. I know they have other figures with the auto-transforming magnetized spring-loaded thing, but I think Moban might be the only one that they've released where it does the auto-transform, and then you can fold out more bits to make it a much more kind of proportional and articulated action figure. Anyway, as for the full robot mode itself, it looks really cool. The Deco is a little bit sparse in this mode, primarily because of what's going on in the legs, but the proportions are a lot better. The color distribution's pretty darn good. It's just the legs. It's just these big nothing right in the shins and feet here, and there's some nice detail in there. Like you can see, there is a lot of molded detail all over this figure, but it's in particular a problem just right in here because it just looks so plain. If they just painted a little bit on the feet or the shins, I think it would have gone a long way. And I guess I can kind of understand why they didn't paint it, because the feet have to fold up and, you know, there's potential scraping with paint all in here, but it just would have been nice if there was a little bit more paint or coloring in there to kind of break up all that blue and black, or dark gray, whatever you want to call it. There's really not any kibble on them, so to speak, of either. Like, there are kind of bits sticking out with the legs here and there, and like the shoulders are a little bit lengthy, but he doesn't really have kibble, which is pretty cool. One thing that is kind of a shame is you get this big gap in the torso here. I kind of wonder if maybe there would have been a way to have a panel flip up or down or something, maybe in like the bottom of the smaller vehicle that could automatically get unlatched when the magnets are kicked off or something. I don't know. It would have been nice to fill that in a little bit. But I do understand why it's like that, because when this is flipped around, the head sits inside that cavity slightly. So you need to have that open, and then once the car is introduced to everything and all this unlatches and it starts to move, this entire mechanism flips around and the front of the car swings through that opening. So you need to have that opening there for all of this to work. It just would have been nice if there was some way to close that up after the fact, but I'm not a toy engineer, so I don't know how easy that would have been. So like I said, I can understand why that's there. It's a little bit of an eyesore, but I think it's an acceptable one. Now, in terms of the head, this is actually a really neat head, especially for a Hello Carbot. It's kind of got like a super robot vibe to it, with this really harshly angled visor and mouth plate, and these kind of weird triangle ears. But then you've also got this kind of trident-shaped crest that goes from the front all the way to the back, and they painted it all the way around to the back. And also these kind of shoulder pylons, which just kind of break up the blue a little bit more. And like the colors work really nice here, where you've got the primarily blue with a little bit of the red accents, some really nice silver accents, and then the yellow for the visor. It's a really cool sculpt. It's a really nice amount of paintwork. Could possibly do with a little bit more, like maybe these little blue vents on the sides of the head. Maybe those are painted black or something like that. But I think this is a really cool head sculpt, which unfortunately does not move. I imagine it would have been absurd to try and engineer movement into the head in a figure this size based on how it's engineered, but it would have been nice to be able to move the head, but no, it's a solid mass of plastic. You can technically do this, so you can kind of look down, but that's all you got. And the reason why the head doesn't move is because the mechanism that locks everything together is inside this. Because there's the magnet underneath here that meets up with the magnet on the top of the car. If you look, there are these little black pieces that stick out on the sides here that are spring-loaded. When you put the car in place, they get sucked in because that's the latch being moved by the magnet and all those mechanisms that are inside the head section. So I don't really see how they could have engineered a movable head with all of that going on. Maybe if it had some kind of weird grooves in the sides, they could have engineered just like a swivel or something like that. But yeah, based on the size and everything, I do understand why it doesn't move. It's still a shame. But the rest of the articulation on this thing, even like by Hello Carbot standards, is amazing, but even just by regular action figure standards, is pretty darn great. You've got arms that can go almost all the way around. What ends up happening is it gets to about here, and bits just kind of crash against each other. You can kind of force it past, like you can feel how it kind of stops, and then you can force it past that. But primarily it goes to about there, or swings back to about there. You can go out. You've got bicep swivels, you've got 90-degree elbows, no wrist movement, but given how this is all one big thing, I kind of understand that. There's no waist articulation, but given how this all comes together, I do understand why. Now the hips is interesting, because they do move in like the universal hip motion, where you got the back, forward, and out. But what's cool is there's this panel in place that kind of, it restricts the forward motion on the hips, but you can move it. And now you'd think, okay, moving this panel, it's going to unlock this, and now everything's going to get floppy. But it's actually extremely cleverly designed, because there's this secondary piece underneath the hip skirts, and that's the piece that locks everything together. So when all of this is pushed down and it's locked together, this piece that's like holding everything together is separated out. So when you move the hip skirts just from the side, that piece stays locked in place. So the torso is not going anywhere, but you can still move the hip skirts and get a bit more outward motion. It's still not like the full 90, but it's way better than like that. So you can go from that to that. And that's just really clever engineering. I really like that. You also get a thigh rotation, and then you get a knee bend, which, because of the transformation, can bend like all the way like that. But then you even get moving feet, and not just for the transformation where they can move up and down like that, but you also get ankle tilt. None of this is groundbreaking, but for a Hello Carbot figure, that's pretty incredible. So yeah, the articulation on this guy is shockingly solid for a Hello Carbot, and he's significantly smaller than Hello Carbots, and he's got the gimmicky auto transformation. It's so weird. Now you may have noticed he's got these guns, and I do like the fact that he can actually transform in all of his modes with the guns staying in his hands. You never have to move them. And you've got two of them. There's this one and this one. The one that does transform has this much longer barrel, but you can fold it up for the sake of the transformation, or if you just want to leave it like that. And then you've got this one, which is much smaller, but when this one's folded up, they're much more similar in shape. I mean, this is clearly different, but they're more of a general, like, soft focus, similar shape. The problem that I have is this gun in particular, because this one pegs into the hand really nicely. It holds pretty well. This one is a floppy pain in the butt. It pegs in, and it's really easy to knock out of place. And it's also really easy to jostle it and have it fall out. This gun does not have that problem. whereas this one just does not like staying in place. I'm gonna need to go in and like try and thicken up the peg or something, because I don't see myself ever really needing to remove the guns from the hands, so I may as well just thicken up the peg so it stays in there. Because of the way it transforms with this in here, like it's not going to fall out when it's transformed into a car, or what passes vaguely as a car, but it's annoying. So I need to address that. But other than that, I think this is just such a fun figure. And as I said, I'm mad at myself for taking as long as I did to get this, because this thing is so much fun to mess around with. Why did they only do this once? Anyway, let's move Moban back here. I think that should be far enough. And adjust so that we can do one final round of size comparisons. I really hope that's far back enough. So here is Moban with the standard deluxe squad, and I kind of think this throws it into perspective how, you know, it's a small vehicle that turns into a small kind of chunky robot that then further expands into something that ends up being significantly taller than a standard size deluxe. So you end up with a pretty sizable robot for what it is, you know, and compared to other Korean transforming robots, which we will see in a minute, is not large, but I think for what it is, for what you get, it's a pretty respectable size. Now, speaking of other Korean transforming robot toys, here he is with Tobot v Wild Chief, who is smaller than a standard Tobot, but still quite a bit larger than Moban. Here he is with the older, more classic Hello Carbot size. In this case, the example being Ponymeister. Again, because we've been seeing this figure throughout the entire video, so I don't know why I'm reiterating that. Here he is with Dandy X from the Pentastorm X set. Here's Moban with Leaf, and as you can see, Leaf is a little bit shorter than Moban. Not by much, but definitely a little bit shorter, and Moban has way more articulation than Leaf. Leaf is, she's quite a bit limited, though she can turn her head, so there is that going for her. Gotta do a little bit of readjusting, so yeah, here is Moban with Dire, once again from the Dire EX set. And just in case you were curious, here is Moban with Dire EX, but as I said in the, there we go. As I said in the Super Patron video, Dire doesn't really gain any height when he's combined with Leaf, so not really any difference. And let me bring everything back in again. Here is Moban in his full robot mode with the duck tank. Alright, that does it. I feel like I have gushed plenty about Moban, but I really like this guy. He's so much fun. Like, the transformation is very simple, but that's why it's enjoyable. Like, that spring-loaded stuff is just so much fun, and then having the added transformation on top of that that gets you this highly articulated for a Hello Carbot, but even just for like an action figure, is really, really cool. And I love that he can keep his guns in his hands for the entire thing. And there's so much clever engineering going on here, particularly around how the waist locks together. Really, for what you get and for what this guy costs, if you get him for, you know, normal prices, not the inflated import eBay prices, he's well worth it. Roughly, the good price for him is about like 15 to 25 bucks. Yeah, you've got to pay for the shipping, which is going to inflate the cost a bit, but I feel like if you're using Gmarket to get something else and you can find this guy for around 15 to 25 bucks, add him to your cart, because he's not going to add much in terms of the overall shipping cost when shipping outside of Korea. I think he's well worth it. But anyway, that is it for Hello Carbot Moban. What do you all think of this guy? Am I alone in thinking that they really should make more figures like this in the Hello Carbot line? Because I absolutely would buy them. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. If you would like to support the channel, in addition to the support you're already giving it by watching this video, there is a Patreon, which you can check the link for in the description, or also there's a link in the end card. There's just a single $1 tier that supports the channel, gets you early access to new videos, access to the occasional behind-the-scenes post, and eventually, if I get enough backers, I'll start doing polls. But with all of that out of the way, thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.